Is that a hold on? Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the January 17th meeting of Economic Matters. I am the only one in the building today, but we are joined via Zoom with Alderman Savage and Alderman Gay. Fellas, can you hear us on your side?
Everything's good, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you all for tuning in. Okay, so up first, do I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Up next, do I have an approval of the minutes from our December 6th meeting?
So moved.
I will second since Alderman Gay was not here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so first on the agenda is appointments and reappointments. AP 3823, the appointment of Mr. Eric Elston to the Heritage Commission. Is Mr. Elston here? Welcome, sir. Please come on up to the table and make sure your microphone is on. A little green light will be flashing. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and giving your name and address for everybody.
Yes, I'm Dr. Eric Elston. Address is 1011 Ashley Station Court, Bowie, Maryland 20721.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Elston. So I'm going to go first and ask a couple of the same question I usually ask for folks is what makes you interested in joining our Heritage Commission?
I'm an Annapolitan, born and raised, grew up in Annapolis, product of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I worked as an educator for 18 years at Annapolis High School, and I'm very passionate about our youth, our community, and definitely our history, being as though our family is able to track our ancestors back to the late 17 to 1800s.
Excellent. Now, you did say you lived currently in Bowie, correct?
Yes.
Are you able to move back? Are you moving back to the city anytime soon? Or?
I own a property in the city lines, and I plan on transitioning, but the transition has just been longer than expected. So
excellent. Do any of my colleagues on Zoom have any questions? I see Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for your interest in the board, Mr. Elston. And thanks for confirming your address. I do want to clarify that I think Hillary clarified with me that the commission, this particular commission, does allow for at-large members that, even if they're not residents of the city, as long as they do have demonstrated interest and connection to Annapolis.
yes.
And so, I think Mr. Elston would certainly qualify for that seat. Mr. Elston, would you just be able to summarize? I think you mentioned a bit as far as you were born and raised here. Anything else you'd like to highlight as far as your interest in particular in Annapolis, and you're still doing work in Annapolis?
Yes. I'm currently facilitating. I call them therapeutic leadership programs within the Annapolis community for the youth. I partner with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Some of my mentor programs that I established are still running at Annapolis High. Also, I sit on the Wiley H. Bates Legacy Center board. I'm also a board member of the Chesapeake Crossroads Heritage Area. And then also I'm a board member of the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Scholarship Trust. So my vested interest in the Annapolis community, and most importantly, the next generation understanding that they have a platform and using history as a way for them to understand who they are, where they come from, and the change they can make in the community to inspire others. So,
great. Well, thank you. And excellent resume. And again, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I would just vouch for Mr. Elston. Extremely excited to see his name as an applicant. He was actually at Annapolis High School when I was at Annapolis High School and had a mentorship program there that was fairly successful, actually, and as he mentioned, still in operation. And so he's incredibly committed to the city of Annapolis and his youth and the families here.
Excellent. Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Gay.
So, unless there are further questions from my colleagues, do I have a favorable recommendation for Dr. Elston? You said,
Yes,
correct?
thank you.
For
Yes.
Dr. Elston.
So moved.
Second.
Do I have- All right. If it has been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank
so
you.
what's going to happen is your recommendation is going to go to the full council, and it will be voted on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Up next, AP 4123, the appointment of Rick Nelson to the Maritime Advisory Board. Welcome, sir.
Hello.
Wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your address into the microphone?
Well, my official name is actually Frederick Armstrong Nelson III. You can see why I compressed then to Rick. And I live at 1/2 South Acton Place in Annapolis.
Excellent. Welcome, sir. So my question for you is the same as everyone. What makes you interested in joining our Maritime Advisory Board?
Well, I'd like to do things to give back to the community of Annapolis. And I think particularly in maritime issues, I have some knowledge. Well, first of all, my wife Jenny and I have been coming down to Annapolis since 1975, so a long time, and on Bayfront Drive, Benby Beach. We purchased the Annapolis Sailing School in 2014, and I knew nothing about sailing or sailing schools at the time, but I think I've acquired a fair amount of knowledge, perhaps through hard knocks since then, and in particular things such as beaches, jetties, erosion, navigable channels. I've acquired, I think, a reasonable amount of knowledge on that. And more broadly, I think that Annapolis and its maritime history and its future, I'd like to help further that. And so I think, anyway, this is a good place where I can bring some of my skills to bear.
And Mr. Nelson, this is not your first time in front of this committee. You also joined us for our economic gardening pilot program
Oh, yes,
update,
yes.
which I like because it shows that you know the business of the maritime industry along with some of the recreational and infrastructure needs of it. So I'm really excited to have you interested in this position. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments for Mr. Nelson? Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Mr. Nelson. I'm glad to see you again. I wish it was in person, but so Mr. Nelson's a Ward 7 resident, and I think he's been just an incredible, just huge part of the ward. And I think he's been really getting more involved with the maritime industry in particular. And you know, I think Mr. Nelson, if you could speak, I think a bit more about what role your school has played in Annapolis, I think that'd be good because I think that's a good perspective to bring to the advisory board.
Yeah, thank you for asking. In that, when Jenny and I bought the sailing school, it was really because in some aspect it was right next to her family's house, and it looked like a beautiful location and a fun thing to do. But since then, I've really learned about the kind of the legacy that we've inherited. The school was founded in 1959 by Jerry Wood. We've educated more than 150,000 students and employed thousands of Annapolitans. And we're always amazed at people that have an affinity for the school. Since acquiring the school, I often joke with people that Jenny and I bought the school not to make a profit, and we've achieved that. But what we have been able to do, besides kind of build a community within sailing, participate in different outreach programs. We work with Annapolis Police Department and their social services and offering kidship programs for them. We support Brendan Sailing, a group with children with learning differences, and we donate the use of our beach. So it's been good. We've been able to get immersed in the community and give back in a number of ways. And things that are upcoming, just looking at the kind of the restoration of the beach on the point, and we have a project underway there, and perhaps put more natural habitat back in there. So there's a number of things kind of in inheriting something that's important to Annapolis that we've, I think, taken a step further.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions? Alderman Gay? Seeing none. All right. Do I have a motion for a favorable recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Mr. Nelson, thank you so much for your interest in this.
thank you.
Your vote's going to go to the City Council at our Monday meeting, I believe. And thank you for your service to the city.
Excellent. Thank you.
Up next, AP 4223, Devin Neal. To the Recreation Advisory Board. I should have finished that thought. Mr. Neal, welcome. Mind introducing yourself and reading your address into the record for us?
Yep. My name's Devin Neal, and I live at 1220 Gemini Drive, Annapolis, Maryland, over in Ward 5.
A beautiful ward. So thank you for your interest in this position. Would you mind sharing with everybody what makes you want to pursue this board?
Certainly. So I was looking for ways to get involved with the city and sort of give back to our community in a different way. And my background is for the past about 9 years now, I've been a youth swim coach. So I found this to be a pretty fitting position for me just based on my background, parks and recreation programming and such. I was also Anne Arundel County Recreation Parks Youth Volunteer of the Year in 2015 for a project I did on a passive use park in the county. So it's not just the programming side, but also sort of that project side with the budgeting and planning of that, just that background. I thought it was a good fit for me to get involved with the community. And when we talk about having a place where we live, work, and play, I think that's really important to give an offering to citizens of all backgrounds and ages here and make an appealing environment and community for all. So that's sort of where my interest stems from.
Now, some of your background is used to be a policy fellow for the Maryland Association of Counties.
Yes.
And I see that you had a couple blog posts published for the Conduit Street blog. I'm a big fan of that
Yeah.
for local legislative updates. Do you want to? Did you do anything there related to Parks and Rec? If not, it's okay. I'm just kind of curious. It's local government experience is what I find. Good about that
Yeah.
position.
So I was actually looking over my resume. And it seems like a little bit got cut out, actually. I think there's a page missing. I have a little more local government experience than just MACO. But when I was with the Maryland Association of Counties, I sort of was a flex player doing a lot of blog posts on a lot of different topics. But of course, county government and local government touches all aspects of our lives, from the roads we drive on to the parks we play in. So I did do a lot of work on Parks and Recreation. I also interned in the city of Salisbury when now Secretary Jake Day was mayor there. So I do have some local programmatic experience from that as well.
Well, I really admire all the resume, even with the little piece cut out. Do I have any of my colleagues have questions? And seeing none, do I have a motion for a favorable recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you for your interest. As I told the other two, final vote for this will come up on Monday's city council meeting, and you can show up if you want. You don't need to, though. It's pretty uneventful process.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, after that, legislation O2923, food trucks, parking and mobile food service in the city of Annapolis. This was my piece of legislation. The goal of this was to explicitly legalize food trucks to operate on commercial properties with the permission of the property owner. They're in a little bit of a gray area currently, but they are proliferating. We do see some of them popping up in commercial areas, in areas like the American Legion, areas like some of the gas stations around the city of Annapolis. And a lot of people like them, but they are in a little bit of a weird place where if our city government looks a little hard, we could find some violations and I think that is behind the times. So the goal is, with the express permission of the property owner, in a commercial setting, you could allow a food truck to operate. There are a couple amendments on this. The first one I will introduce is my substitute amendment. This was introduced due to current city law allows food trucks to operate on public areas in Ward 8. The city law department had some issues with how that was written because it references a specific ward boundary. Ward boundaries change during the redistricting process, so this was reworked by our law department to just iron out whatever issue that was. It still keeps the core element of the legislation that I'm trying to do. I consider this more the law department's amendment than mine. I am totally fine with it. Do any of my colleagues have questions about the bill as a whole, actually, or do we want to go straight to the amendments? I apologize, I kind of rushed through. Okay, so Amendment 1 then. Are there any questions on Amendment 1? Yes, sir, Alderman Gay.
Thank you. I have a question just in general from something from the staff report, and I'm not seeing it addressed in, or it could be addressed in Alderman Savage's amendments. I just have not seen. Disposal of the liquid waste and also the seating areas. Has that been addressed in the amendments?
Well, disposal of liquid waste is covered by county county regulations, and along with previous city regulations. I don't really, Alderman Savage, I don't think any of yours addresses liquid waste specifically. None of mine do. However, I do think there's existing rules on the books that keeps that safe. Seating areas, I never really thought of that, to be frank. Most of these are set up in kind of commercial areas where I think people want to get in and get out. I don't know too many people who want to go to the halal food truck off the Shell station and sit and hang out in that area. I think they want to get in and get out, but I suppose that could be, I don't know. I don't see that generating more problems, significant issues.
I just, the liquid waste question I asked just because of obviously grease and all of that stuff, which I see would be the responsibility of Public Works, but Planning and Zoning would do the inspections, or at least that's how I read the staff report. The seating, would that create controversy with the outdoor dining? I mean, think April through let's say like August, these get popular. They start, coming not just at gas stations, but let's say like in the, parking lot of the Giant or the Safeway, and they put up like stands. Does that violate existing outdoor dining rules and regulations?
I don't know. I don't think it does, because I feel like they would have addressed that in the staff report if that was a potential problem. And then Alderman Savage, I saw you had your hand up regarding some of this. I apologize. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just on the waste part of it, you're right, Mr. Chair, and that's already addressed by existing city law, and in particular, it'd be our illicit discharge detection and elimination law, and/or the regulations we have on food waste, so that we don't get any kind of grease getting dumped down the storm drain system or sewer system and clogging it up. That's the main concern with that. And then, if it goes down a storm drain, obviously that go right into the bay, which we don't want food waste going into the bay. So it sounds like from the staff report that Planning and Zoning would be inspecting that, but Public Works would be the one enforcing it. I think that's something we'll just have to monitor, and hopefully staff will give us some education when they come in for a permit, and that they be informed that they have to properly dispose of all their waste. Maybe we can, I don't know if we can make that a note, if Miss Jackson can make a note there for staff that they should include that in the application process. But your other question about outdoor seating, yeah, I can't remember. I'm trying to think if the food truck near the Shell has outdoor seating. I think I've seen some around town that have added it. It's not necessarily a problem, but it could be an issue in the Shell lot just because Forest Drive is, the traffic's moving so quickly down that road, people pulling off at high speeds. I can see that potentially being a safety issue, but that also should be something that staff could address through the application process. If maybe having a question about if they plan on having outdoor seating, and then just having certain requirements if they do, that there's protected from vehicular traffic, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I just looked at it as, and obviously I support the legislation. I just looked at it as one of the unintended consequences of the legislation that could, potentially pop up. And I'm not opposed to, taking advantage of the vacant parking spaces, especially in some of these larger lots. I hope this, would even allow for food truck festivals to take place in the city. I know there's a very popular one that I believe is like every Friday in the county, if I'm not mistaken, and people drive out there to go see it. But it'd be good if it's in the Eastport Shopping Center parking lot, let's just say, and families can walk by and support local businesses. So I'm all in favor of this. I just was mentioning those two things that came to mind.
Yeah, the Food Truck Fridays, when the weather gets nice, it's over at the farmers market. I'm a big fan of that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get behind this is there's one there's one truck there. It's Smash Burgers, which you can't really get in any standing restaurants here in the city of Annapolis. And he lives just across the city-county line, very close to the Ward 5 border, and he can't operate in the city of Annapolis itself on like a totally clear legal ground, so he goes to the county, which I personally find a bit embarrassing. And there's some other local guys around here that I think do a very good job. So are there any further questions on the first substitute amendment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
not a question, but just some more comments on this. I do think it'd be good if we could use this to help address some of the food desert issues. Maybe even, I'm just thinking, it's not directly related to this, but maybe the city could, for example, put out a bid for a produce food truck to have in some of our food desert areas where, we'll help pay for somebody to operate, or put out a bid so people can actually put out a bid to offer to put a food truck in if we have any kind of public lots near some of these food deserts, or maybe even like Hacka property or something like that.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. And then just the other issues I didn't mention, but I have seen is that, which again I think are all addressed with existing law, is that I've had one that had some trash around the food truck, and also the one at the Shell station has this big sign that lights up, which I've been meaning to contact planning and zoning about because I'm not quite sure that's in compliance with our sign regulations. But that's again I don't think that's something we have to address in the legislation. It's going to have regulations dealing with that.
Yeah. I am aware of some of the trash complaints coming from the truck over by the Shell station. I do think we have current other stuff that do address that, because behind the truck there's just some garbage thrown around. I don't know if county food safety regulations can get behind that, or I don't know if that's a planning and zoning thing where we can talk about refuse. The sign thing, I don't know off the top of my head if that violates or not. I personally like the sign, but I'm not going to make a big deal about it if it violates the rules. Like, people will still go to your truck if it's good, no matter what your sign flashes. So, yes, thank you so much. So do I have a favorable recommendation for Amendment 1?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize we got to the amendment.
I apologize, Alderman Gay. Yeah, we did kind of transition into the general general conversation on the legislation itself. So Amendment 1, point of order, do we need to do a motion to bring it up for discussion for Amendment 1 or just go forward like I am?
I think we got to make a motion.
Okay, so I am told I have violated proper procedure and I need to make a motion to introduce Amendment 1 to the floor. So I will move Amendment 1. Alderman
Second.
Gay, will you second? Thank you. So as I said earlier, Amendment 1 is introduced because the current food truck regulations in the city do allow food trucks to operate in Ward 8 and public areas. This is problematic because ward boundaries shift every time we do redistricting, and this was something that the law office cooked up to basically iron out that discrepancy. I consider it more a law office amendment than my own, but it still keeps the core goal of what I want to do, which is legalize the food trucks on commercial properties. So I am in favor of it. Do other members of the committee have questions?
So, Chair, I have a question particularly, just quickly.
Yes, sir.
B2 under, I'm not actually seeing what line it is, but it says, under portion A, mobile vendors, and then 2, when conducting sales in residential zones pursuant to, why is the recommendation of, 30 minutes to me, that makes it like an ice cream truck. Like you're cooking, stopping in the neighborhood, riding through, and then, so is this making it
That was
so that they can operate, like, are they being required to be at a standstill location, or is this for a special exemption?
So the legislation that I'm introducing is strictly to legalize them in commercial properties. We're not diving into residential. The residential rules you see on A2 are already in place, I think, to allow ice cream trucks and not these other kinds to set up for extended periods. While I am personally in favor of allowing more flexibility on that, it's not really a thing I want to try to tackle right now. So I'm just kind of going,
That's no problem. I again just was being sure that it wasn't being changed. I wasn't sure if that was, but I see actually we're just striking it and changing it to a numeric version. So thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Can I make a motion to favorably recommend Amendment 1?
I will second that motion. And I will second that motion, and all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, up next, amendment number 2, Alderman Savage. Do you want to make a motion to introduce Amendment 2?
So moved.
I will second it to introduce debate on it. Alderman Savage, you want to get behind this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so historically, my main concern with food trucks was with the noise and associated air pollution, which primarily has come from they usually use some kind of fossil fuel gas diesel generator to power them. However, when I think a number of the food trucks in the city, at least the 2 that I've been to, they're actually hardwired into the nearby business, or property owner has actually granted them the ability to hook up directly to their electric outlet, to the electric system. And so that removes the need to have a diesel fuel generator. So, I think that's why, because personally, that's my biggest issue with them, is just, again, the noise and the pollution, especially if I was to live near them. We've talked about, noise in general from vehicles from our roadways is very loud, and so I think anything we can do to keep our town more quiet would be helpful. So the way this is worded is that it says mobile food service vendors shall not use gas, diesel, or other fossil fuel powered generators as their primary energy source. They shall only be used as emergency backup systems. That's because I was informed that the food trucks, I think there's some requirement by the county health department, and I think you knew this, Mr. Chair, that they have to have some kind of backup system, which is often going to be fossil fuel derived. And I don't think it has to be, but in any case, I think this is kind of compromise I'm willing to go forward with, is to say, look, at least as long as their primary energy source is not the fossil fuel, I'm good with it, because then you're not going to have any kind of noise issue.
Yeah,
So that's the motivation.
if I may, yeah, you are correct. They are required to have a backup. They're required to have a backup energy source. I do appreciate the compromise on this. I have a slight amount of caution on if they set up an area that does not have a plug-in as a potential option. Are you willing to adjust to say if it is available? If the primary source, if a electrical outlet is available or something, is that something else you're willing to adjust on, or are you very happy with the legislation as current, or the amendment as currently written?
Well, I just think that would open up too much of a potential loophole, and for me, it kind of opens up more of a can of worms, because if we allow for them to use the generators, then I'm going to be more concerned about surrounding residential neighborhoods and impacts to them. My next amendment, I'm going to change, because I don't think they necessarily need to get approval from residential surrounding neighborhoods, but as long as it's electric powered primarily, because again, I think that's the biggest impact, is the potential generator. So I'd prefer to keep it in there, but I'm trying to think if there's a way. Do you know if this has come up with anybody as far as being in a situation where they've not been able to plug in? Because even downtown's historic district, but we often have public places that people can plug into. If they're going to be setting up in a commercial lot, they most likely are going to have some kind of outlet to plug into.
The only time I'm aware of generators being the primary source is during special events, which still have to go through its own separate process. I think even the one in the Shell station operates on electrical. I don't know enough about some of the other locations. I don't know about some of the other locations. Like there's the one that operates on the gas station on the corner of, actually I think they moved it, but there used to be one that operates on the corner of Chinkopin and Forest. I don't know if the ones that operate on the American Legion have that ability. But in the name of compromise, I'm willing to go along with this for the Economic Matters hearing, and we can kind of talk and iron out anything else if there's some other issues. If the amendment sponsor's all right with that as a way to go forward.
It sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Okay. Alderman Gay, do you have any questions on amendment number 2?
Yeah, I do actually. One, I sent a message to the clerk. The online Granicus is not working, so I'm sure, I don't know if the public is able to see these amendments. I'm actually not able to pull them up. But I do have a question in regards to, I don't know, I think the amendment actually should be fleshed out. I think it's, I agree with you that we should be phasing out fossil fuel emissions. And so, using the generator, et cetera, is completely unhealthy for our environment. However, I'm worried about, again, what if there is a festival taking place, or not a festival? What if a truck comes to the city of Annapolis and they're using an older model truck, and it's maybe something that their family has purchased and long invested in. So should the language be reflective of the times? Like, should it say, trucks purchased with with electric option or with electric priority should use outlets at public points or outlets from consumers, and those purchased before or those with a priority of using some sort of fossil fuel are exempt from the amendment.
Alderman Savage, any response? And I mean, if we want to keep debating and puzzling these out, we can just delay action on the thing as a whole until our next meeting, find some time to kind of iron out some of these as well. But
Well, I hear what you're saying, Alderman Gay. But I'm also a little hesitant to go too far down the what if scenarios, because as far as older trucks, if somebody comes in and wants to put down a truck and they just don't have the ability to connect, I don't know enough. I think we'd have to look into it more to say how many of these trucks automatically come with that kind of a connection to be able to plug right in. I just don't know.
And that's what I was confused. I mean, I really don't. Again, I'm not a food truck expert, but every food truck that I feel like I've walked up to, they've been on like gas generator, I feel like.
if I may, it depends on the location. So one of the food trucks is the Oscars coffee truck in the Eastport area. They're plugged in, but other times locations plugins just aren't possible. I've usually seen that more in things like the special events. I think that overhead would be very high. I think overhead would be very high if they had to keep going gas generator every single day for various locations, if they're like set in place, which is what this is kind of legislation's trying to target. I guess that means I need to explore some more food trucks. Do we want to do a field trip, guys?
Mr. Chair, can I ask you about what's the relation between special events and then compared to these food trucks that are more or less semi-permanent, right? Like the coffee one you mentioned, or the one at the Shell station. They're there all year round, and it's not really related to a special event.
Yeah, and that's what this amendment is. That's what the legislation's trying to tackle, not the special event circumstances, but the more permanent one, or the more established ones being set up.
Okay.
Again, if I'm willing to go along with this one, just in the name of compromise, to kind of keep the conversation going forward, and I can explore a couple other potential options, or we can choose to delay action on the legislation as a whole. It's up to you fellas while we explore a little more detail. The main thing, though, is a backup generator of some kind, which is primarily fossil fuel, is required. That's per county food code, county food safety regulations. So,
yeah. Well, I guess, Alderman Gay, what are your thoughts on? Do you want to? Is this something you think we want to postpone and look into something more in particular, or do you want to move forward with it here and just see if people come to us with additional changes that we need to make?
Yeah, I'm fine with moving it forward tonight. I don't think we'll have such a large influx that it may even be an issue. And so again, yeah, I guess if something pops up from a constituent, then we just make the necessary change then.
I'm amenable to that. So do I have a recommendation for Amendment 2?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, Amendment 2 is given a favorable recommendation. Amendment 3, Alderman Savage. This is one of yours, although you were saying you were wanting to rework it or something.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let's.
So-
Sorry, you go ahead, sir.
Yeah. First of all, just to move it, put it forward.
I will second it for purpose of debate.
And then, so I'd like to move this. However, I would propose to remove, well, I guess for the sake of Alderman Gay, since in case you're having problems bringing this up, what it says is that, so the existing.
I have the amendments now.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. So I would like to propose this, but remove Roman numeral 2, and that would remove the requirement to get permission from adjoining residential property owners. The more I was thinking about this, especially since we move in the direction of, hopefully having these be quieter and moving away from diesel loud generators, I don't think this is going to be an impact to the residential neighbors. And I would hate to open up the door to have one local curmudgeon kind of block a potentially good asset for a community, because like we've said earlier, the food trucks are still going to have to comply with our noise regulations and everything else, right? And so that's our check and balance. So I don't think we necessarily need to do that. I would like to. I'm still inclined to keep the number 3, which would require any kind of restaurant within 100 feet that they'd have to sign off on it, just because I am wary of undue competition as far as these restaurants pay a lot to rent the buildings, maintain the buildings, and staff and everything else, and I don't want to necessarily undermine them and cause them to go out of business. And so in some cases, though, I think the uses can be complementary. But I think this just speaks to, if somebody wants to open it up, they should at least just go and talk to the nearby restaurant owners. And I think some of them have already even said it's fine in those situations. But this is a requirement that was in our existing code, but I just wanted to carry it over. Any questions from those?
Yes, sir. One point of order question. Do we need to make a motion to remove on 2 subsection A subparagraph 2? Do we need to make a motion to do that removal?
Strike that from the line and only that. Okay, so you would strike it from.
Say it into the microphone.
Okay.
We have also not had a motion to move Amendment 2. So.
Oh, we have not?
No, we
Or
did.
Amendment 3.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so first point of order.
We did.
We did. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so Alderman Savage would have to strike what he wants from the line and replace it with what he wants it to say. And then you guys vote on that.
Okay, so was his commentary on wanting to remove that portion sufficient for us to vote on that adjustment?
Did he replace it with what he wanted it to say?
Alderman Savage, so I don't know if you're able to hear Ms. Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so before we get to that, is there general consensus on the committee to remove that number 2 as far as the requirement to get permission from the neighbors?
Yes, I will second the removing the adjoining residential property owners.
And Alderman Gay, are you good with that?
I am as well. Yes.
Okay, then, because if we agree with that, once we finish talking about it, I'll just withdraw this motion and make a new one as we amend the amendment basically in the motion.
Yeah.
But so what about Mr. Chair, your thoughts on the number 3, which is the requiring permission from restaurants that are within 100 feet?
Softly against it. my thought process on that is like if there's a brick and mortar restaurant that opens up next door to something or within 100 feet, we don't require them to give. Actually, let me add a question, because you had said something at the end of your explanation on this amendment that this is a carryover from the current code. So this is already in the legislation, like this is currently already in city code where if a new restaurant comes in, or is it a food truck specific thing coming in?
I don't believe it's in the rewrite, but it was in the original. I believe it was in the original.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was in the original thing, so whatever. It's fine with me. Yeah, with 2 removed, I'm amendable to this.
Okay, so you just want to strike it.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, with 2 removed, I am amendable to this.
Now you need to vote
What
on it.
about you, Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I am. Am fine with this. Just for clarity, so if you are registered with the state, like you have a business, you operate the food truck, you have the appropriate documentations from the county health department, you can bring your food truck once this is passed to the city of Annapolis at any time or place and set up shop. Essentially, is what this is allowing. And if we pass amendment number 3, you then really, or the only permission you would need is if you're within 100 foot of a business at this point.
Of an existing restaurant. So if you wanted to put a food truck within
So like if I had a food truck and I wanted to park on Main Street in front of the just like 162 Main, I think it is, and they gave me permission, I'd be able to operate my food truck right there.
that would this legislation would not apply to that. So there are different rules and standards for the historic district where Main Street is. The goal of this is just if there is a property that is zoned commercial, they can operate in that commercial zoned property. So on the private property location with the property owner's permission. Again, while I would love to soften up overall regulations for allowing these things to kind of come in, it's just not something I really feel like tackling in the grand scheme of things right now. And part of the rationale for why I'm trying to loosen these standards is it goes back to the Smash Up Burger food truck guy. The guy who operates that, he's like an 18-year-old kid. And he said when he first did his GoFundMe to finance his truck, I don't know much about running a restaurant, but I do know how to make really good burgers. This truck allows me a lower overhead and an easier way to operate my business. Alderman Savage, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought that they'd still have to get a permit from the city. I'm going to try to bring up the fiscal impact note. But do you know off the top of your head?
I mean, they'd have to still go through whatever process you need to go through to get a business license, but let's see.
Yeah, it looks like there's. Yeah, so we do get some revenue from them because they do need to get, I think, permitted and inspected. So by us. So that'd be the Alderman Gay's line of question is that they still would have to get that kind of permission from the city planning and zoning.
And then also in the legislative summary for Alderman Gay's information, they're classified as a mobile food service facility, and that requires license and inspection by Anne Arundel County Department of Health.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Again, I just was when I seen the reference to an amendment 3 with the residential, that threw me for a loop for a second there. So I appreciate the clarity.
Thank you. All right, so further discussion on Amendment 3? With the portion removed, did we follow proper procedure on that, Ms. Jackson?
Mr. Chair, could I guess I'd withdraw my motion and then make a new one to favorably recommend Amendment 2 with Roman numeral 2 removed.
You mean Amendment 3?
3.
I'm sorry, 3, yes.
Striking.
Okay, so the motion is, according to Ms. Jackson, to make a favorable recommendation for Amendment 3 while striking Roman numeral 2, which is adjoining residential property owners and. Is that correct?
Yes.
Motioning and Robert's rulesing, Ms. Jackson?
You're striking 2 and then recommended it favorably as amended.
Okay, so we're striking 2, which do we need to make the formal vote to strike 2?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to make a formal vote to strike 2. For ease of speed, I will make the motion to strike 2 on Amendment 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, the new motion is to recommend Amendment 3 favorably as amended.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess this might become a committee amendment. I'm not sure how staff wants to handle it.
Well, Cynthia had to make legislative and policy analyst Reuter will have to make that call from the Office of Law. I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
It's an
fine.
Office
We've
of
at least
Law
gotten there.
question. It's an Office of Law question. Whatever it plays out, it's fine with me.
Okay. Well, so can I make a motion to favorably recommend O2923 as amended by the committee?
I
Yeah.
will second that motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. So finally, do we have a motion to recommend O2923 favorably as amended?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. And last on the agenda is general discussion, ID 2024 Economic Development Update from Mr. Rice. Mr. Rice, welcome, sir. Thank you for listening to a rousing conversation on food trucks.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll kick it off. We've been pretty busy. I submitted the annual report just a little while ago, and I just want to talk through that very, very briefly. I know it's been a long meeting. 2023 was, again, a very busy year for us. The Economic Development Office provided outreach and assistance to 314 businesses and partners. We gave over 40 presentations to keep the community informed. We produced nearly 50 reports, produced a number of newsletters, and facilitated 8 ribbon cuttings. Our citywide year-end combined commercial vacancy rate was 6%. We, as a city, added 25 new businesses, and we had 17 businesses that were expanding or relocating within the city. Just a couple things I, did want to mention. From our highlight section, economic gardening, that was definitely a gem for our office. We had 6 businesses that participated, and the program received rave reviews. Also, we had a very good collaboration with the Small Business Administration and the Maryland Small Business Development Center, SBDC. We worked with those 2 organizations on a speed lending event that we held at the Pitt Moyer Recreation Center. This provided local businesses, small businesses in particular, minority businesses as well, with direct access to financial services institutions. So kind of like, speed dating, but speed lending, where the business owners had a chance to meet with, rotate, chairs and meet with different banks. I'm also very bullish and happy about our Annapolis Blues football club or soccer team. In its inaugural season, the Blues won 2 trophies, the National Premier Soccer League Mid-Atlantic Regular Season Championship and the conference championship, and they were on their way for the national championship, but they stumbled. But they also broke NPSL attendance records with, the record with 8,480 fans. And if you haven't been to a Blues game, it is a blast.
I was one of those fans at that record-breaking game. It was a fantastic time.
I think I was there too.
Yeah, go Blues.
So in the most recent week and a half, our office has been very busy dealing with assisting businesses that have been impacted with the recent flooding. Before the flood came, we were very proactive, working with emergency management to make sure that the businesses that were potentially most vulnerable had information about the flood and could take I won't say corrective action, but defensive action. And after, of course, the event, we also were and still are very engaged with those businesses to make sure that they are getting the assistance that they need to get back up and running. I won't belabor it. We, of course, had a press conference, and I can definitely talk more if need be, but that's been on the front burner as of late.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. So I want to re-up the focus of that on the front burner, I guess, for the committee's purposes. How many of those businesses downtown ended up being significantly impacted to the point of closure by the floods? The two that I am aware of are Pips Stock Street Dogs and Storm Brothers Ice Cream. Were there other of those Dock Street businesses that were impacted significantly to the point of closure?
Yes, Eagle Souvenir is another one of those. Moe's as well. Total, there were 18 structures that were impacted and roughly 20 businesses, but we really had the full range of damage, from destroyed equipment, mold growth, electrical damage, loss of power, inventory loss. So it's really a smattering of different kinds of impacts.
Thank you. And with the state of emergency declared by the city and the state as well, correct? The state also declared a state of emergency on this situation?
Not the state. The state declared a state of preparedness, which is a newer designation, but the city declared a state of emergency.
But each of those, the state of emergency from the city and the state of preparedness from the state, allows us to provide resources for these small businesses that are pretty big pillars of our downtown to give them resources and help them open back up as quickly as possible, correct?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the state of preparedness. It's a newer designation, but the state of emergency by the city definitely opened up resources, in particular the Volt Fund that the County Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, they have those resources and those grant funds, and they're making those available to the businesses that were impacted.
Now, one thing that some businesses in the city do complain about is some of the speed of permitting issues, especially for redesign, especially for rehabbing. We obviously want the buildings to be safe and in compliance, like food safety, but do you foresee any permitting issues through our departments causing problems, needing us to go through Board of Appeals, planning a commission, or anything like that to get these up and operating since they're already there? Or is it just as soon as we deem it safe, they can flip that open sign open?
Yeah, so we are expediting permits as quickly as possible. When the flood happened, and as soon as the city was able, we had inspectors on site who were going door to door, looking at buildings, doing assessments, and then as soon as we called the health department and asked them to, the county health department that is, to come and do their assessments, they were here, I think, within 30 minutes. So we have been moving things as quickly as possible.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's all I have on the report and on the flooding. Alderman Gay or Alderman Savage, do either of you have questions for Mr. Rice, both on the general economic report for the year or on the flooding state of emergency?
I do. I wanted to just quickly follow up, and hopefully, Mr. Rice, your office can work with our clerk so that we can set up a meeting and follow up on the conversation that we had. I think it was in December in reference to the amendment that I had passed in the budget that set aside $105,000 for a minority business. Obviously, we went on holiday, and so there was some pause in that conversation. But I'd like to resume the conversations with your office and the Office of Law. One, to see how quickly we can utilize, discretionary funding for that. Maybe, as you mentioned, providing scholarships to the county's grant program, the ZIP or ZOO program, or something like that. But bottom line is, I want to get that money out, and obviously, I know we have to do that study. So I'd like to have a meeting so that we can get that RFP together. And if you could ask your contacts at the county, who did they work with, and if we could piggyback off of some of their information, as was suggested at the last meeting, that would be great. I think the quicker the better. For me, and it would just be helpful if we could meet offline.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Anything else? Mr. Rice, to piggyback off Alderman Gay's commentary, would it be unreasonable for us to ask for an update on the procurement process of that study by next meeting?
No, I mean, since we have seemingly the green light from the committee to move forward with a disparity study, we can definitely provide an update at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. And that's all I have on that front. Do my colleagues have anything else? Excellent. So in that case, we will bring general discussion to a close. Mr. Rice, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, colleagues, unless there's anything else for the good of the order from you two? In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. The meeting is closed.
See you all. Be safe.